Someone left a comment recently and it brought up the title of this video and the point that they made. And I don't know why, but the comment was lingering with me for days. Like, they were basically saying that people don't recognize it, but being hypersexual is literally a sign of mental illness. And I feel like it's a very bold statement. And I think what made me keep thinking about that throughout the past few days was that, I don't know, I was trying to rationalize it because I don't think they're wrong to say that. Maybe they are. Maybe it is insensitive, but I don't think they're wrong, but they're not completely right. So here's what I was thinking about, right? Here's the conclusion I made. Someone's drive can be influenced simply by biological purposes, right? Someone's hormones, their age, the stress in their life, overall lifestyle, diet, exercise. If done correctly, that can make someone hypersexual through normal biological means. However, when your drive is compulsive, uncontrollable, and procrastinates your tasks in your daily life to where you end up in distressful situations, or you're involved in dangerous behaviors, or it interferes with your ability to form healthy relationships and stabilize your self-image, I think it can qualify as something that would be fairly considered to be mentally unwell. But I'm no psychologist. But I feel like if someone is hypersexual and it's so persistent and overwhelming to the point where it's hard for them to manage or detach their own identity from it, that's actually linked to many mental health issues. And remember what I said in a video a few days ago, whenever I interacted with someone whose whole persona and their whole presentation of how they are online or whatever in person, it was lewd, that was their personality, or that was their presentation, their personality rather was either boring or dry when you weren't talking about lewd things with them, or their personality was unwelcoming and distasteful. Like, they got severe anger issues, strong pessimism, negativity, actively depressed, hateful motives, and resentment issues. So like I said in that video where I mentioned this, people mask negative traits about themselves by making their whole personality or identity consumed with being someone who is lewd or hypersexual in presentation. There's a lot of people like this on Discord, by the way. Let's not use like online examples, because my ex I'll say had, because I don't know what she's doing right now. I have no idea. My ex had a very high drive, but after being away from her for a long period of time now, I realized rationally that her urges, her hypersexuality, was a form of escape, and I can even say self-harm. It's almost like an addiction. And how is that self-harm, Aku? Well, I say self-harm because someone like her had very poor self-esteem and a very poor perspective on their own image. Self-image issues, right? So when someone is pleasing her high drive, she felt wanted and loved. Someone actually cared about her appearance, her image, right? Something she can't articulate through her own consciousness without someone literally being intimate with her. She's using external things to make her internal. You get what I'm saying? So but how many people sound just like that to you? How many people do you know sound exactly like that? They have self-image issues, but they need that intimacy or external validation to basically be like, yo, I care about myself. Like, do you really do? Or is it just, and maybe it's you, I don't know. I've been there in moments too, where I would have moments or going weeks or months being hypersexual in my nature. Like, I would, spend a lot of time alone doing stuff. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? And what I found about myself as someone who doesn't actively participate in stuff like that as much anymore is that I realized it was a coping mechanism that I didn't understand. It was stress management. Now, is it wrong to manage your stress through that? Stressed out, you want to, spend some time alone, do some stuff. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't say it's evil, but it can be. If, again, this is hypersexuality versus just like, hey, you just feeling it. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference between this but again, I wouldn't say it's evil, but it definitely can be distracting if you are in a state of hypersexuality. That means something's going on. It's like it definitely desensitized me. Do you get what I'm saying? But those who are dealing with hypersexuality and they externalize it to their social life, to the others people in this world, these people end up ruining genuine friendships, relationships, and everything that, I don't know. I don't want to say everything they touch turns bad or sour, But when it comes to like social interactions, they're so influenced by their drive that things just fall apart quickly. Nothing ever really lasts, you know? Like it could, and you know what? Sometimes some people they don't want to take accountability for stuff like this too, because they don't realize how bad this hypersexuality is, or they embrace it like it's just my personality. You know, I don't really think that's an excuse for it, you know, because this can lead to infidelity. It could lead to being in a relationship with someone where they're prioritizing their hypersexual gratifications rather than their emotional bond with you. Because people like this, they end up always talking about how like they're not compatible with other people, right? That no one understands them too. Like some people, they're like that as well, who are hypersexual. Like no one understands me. I can't find someone who's compatible with me. Well, maybe if you weren't prioritizing hypersexual gratifications over emotional bonds and genuinely being tolerable as a personality. This is what I was talking about in the other video about doing the inner work. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, see, people just blame everything else, or they're gonna be like, it's just my personality. I'm just a lewd person. Like, this, you know, and this person will end up being emotionally unavailable sooner or later. That's what happens to these people. You know what I'm saying? Or they'll just ruin every social bond they have because they're too wired to their hypersexuality. This could be based off of many things too. You know, like why is somebody hypersexual? Could be many things from the past. We don't need to get into those topics, but you know where I would go with this, because I know a lot of people know where I would go with this, why people grow up hypersexual. You know, I would say it's not their fault. It's unfortunate, but the first thing is self-awareness, right? The first thing is being aware of this issue and then addressing it and learning how to manage it. And look, sorry if it sounds like I'm shaming these type of people. I'm just sharing what I was thinking about, whether it's really something mentally unwell or not. Let me simplify it. Because if you look, someone who has very compulsive behaviors and easy triggers without much self-control, what do you call that? What do you call someone like that? Because if I call it mental illness, I might get social justice warriored on. I might get flamed. I might get demonized. But what would you call it then instead? What, seriously, because I feel like if the shoe fits, let them wear it. And people who are like this, they're constantly in a cycle of guilt for their impulses if they haven't chosen to embrace it, or they're maybe suppressing it, you know, and it could even amplify their self-image issues because they feel disgusted with themselves that their hypersexuality is causing them to end up in situations that they rationally and logically wouldn't want to be in. So when that hypersexuality is temporarily subdued, that's when that self-image issue starts arising, because, you know, it's like, dang, why did I do that? Dang, I let my impulses get to me again. I let this happen. I ruined something. But again, some people, they suppress it. So, hey, I think the comment that was left, I think they're right, but I think it's an unspoken subject and a very sensitive one. What do you guys think? This episode is found on Spotify and YouTube. I'm out.